How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Ruffled Rowlets, and welcome back to your daily countdown video to Pokémon Legends Z-A. If you guys are ready, let's get started with today's posts in regards to theories and everything like rumors and in between. Let's get started. First things first is this post by Soul Silver Art. If you guys do not know Soul Silver, he's a leak analyst and a theorizer when it comes to Pokemon. And he says, Part 1, I've seen so many people, big names and not big names, saying that the Pokemon Company Incorporated skipped the Black and White remakes, or that there's no mainline game in 2024, or that they're thankful this is a gap year and they're taking more time. Not exactly true, lol. Now, this year was always an outsourced remake year, as Game Freak is currently working on their two other projects, PLZA, Pokémon Legends Z-A, and of course, Generation 10 of Pokemon, which is true, of course, it just makes total sense, but seemingly on their normal dev cycles, which, yes, that seems to be still not a break year. This is something I've been thinking about as well, and I have mentioned a few times on stream, which is that if you really think about it, it doesn't necessarily mean there's a break year. It's still the same, length of time. Like, if you think about it, when did Legends Arceus come out? Because as soon as Legends Arceus was, done with, they must have started work on the next thing once they got, the approval and knew that, hey, you know what? We should be making another Legends game after the success of the first one, right? So, again, they have, by the time it releases next year, it probably will have been 3 years of development time, which is the same as every Pokemon game usually, which is about 3 years. Now, he says here the following, which is that PLZA was announced for 2025 as a hype news for Pokemon Day in 2024. How would yesterday have gone if the only announcement was an outsourced Faithful Black and White remake instead? I think they pulled this off masterfully. We got this hype Pokemon Day news, and now people will only be more hype a few months from now, April and July, when they announce a Black and White remake for this year too, which I highly, at this point, am starting to think it is real. I'm starting to believe. I've got hopium, boys. I got the hopium, okay? I've got the hopium in me, dude. I'm huffing the copium. It is what it is, You guys can say it if you want to in the comments, but yes, I am huffing the copium because I actually do think there is a chance we will get another game announcement this year. Now, the reason I bring this up, and I've talked about this in several videos, and I'm probably going to keep talking about this all the way until July, but Pokemon announcements for remakes didn't used to get announced on Pokemon Day. They actually got announced during a later presents happening around May and June, around that time frame. To prove this, I usually have this little post here, which I can show, that kind of gets my point across. And I'm going to put it up on the screen here so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So this is what I'm referring to. If you actually take a look at the actual release schedule of Pokemon games in the past, we used to actually have, if you look right here, so for example, Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire were announced on the May 7th of 2014. Ultra Sun and Moon were announced on June 6th of 2017. Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee were announced on May 30th, 2018. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that they would do an announcement around, May or June, because they have done it in the past, right? It's not like an impossibility necessarily. And also, if you think about it, it also makes sense to not announce a Black and White game remake alongside PLZA, because PLZA feels more like a game that doesn't really fit with, necessarily with that, with, if you think of BDSP and Legends Arceus, those two kind of fit together because we're both literally Sinnoh, whereas this is Kalos and possibly Unova. Now, again, there's no guarantee for a Black and White remake for this year, no guarantee, but it does feel like, there is a possibility. There's always a chance for it. There's a very much a chance it could still happen. That's pretty much the point I want to make is, don't give up hope. There is always a chance. Not that I even want Black and White remakes necessarily, but just to kind of get my point across. So yes, we are huffing the copium. Yes, we are huffing the Gengar copium. Yes, we're going to put them in the corner here just because, now we know we're huffing the copium. But it is fine, though. I think we still have a chance. So, moving on to the next part of the post, he says that PLA and BDSP were both Sinnoh games. This is literally what I just said. So, they were connected, but these two games aren't. So, there was no need to reveal them at the same time. Also, games like Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee and Ultra Sun and Moon were revealed as late as June of the same year that they came out. And those were Game Freak made games. I know I'm talking like this is confirmed, and that's because I heard this from two people I fully trust, plus corroborating evidence that Pioro had heard the exact same thing I heard, but from a different source. Now, again, what he's saying here is the same thing that I also have heard, right? Like, again, you guys don't understand. We hear stuff in the grapevine, right? Like, things trickle down to us, like people who share this information or talk about this information or theorize about it. We hear stuff from the grapevine that tells us, like, hey, this thing might be happening, just so you know, right? Like, this might be happening. There are 3 different sources. 2 of those are actually, like, Pioro is a legitimate source. The man has been correct, like, 99% of the time. He was correct for the recent Pokemon, he was actually correct about the recent Nintendo Presents or Nintendo Direct that they did. He was actually correct about that one. Like, he was actually correct about it. Like, he wasn't wrong. He wasn't, like, getting any facts wrong, anything. He was 100% correct about it. He predicted the games that were going to be announced, or not predicted, but he actually leaked what games will be announced and all that sort of stuff and gave out little riddles. And that's the thing. He was correct. And then he also told us black and white remakes is something I've heard about from last year, but I have no info right now. So, again, just keep that in mind. And like he says here, plus the corroborating evidence that Pioro had heard the exact same thing I heard from a different source. I may die on this hill, but I'm standing with these people I trust, and I'll take the L if it doesn't happen. You know what? I'm going to stand with you on that one. I'm hoping, I'm coping, and I'm hoping it's going to happen. Even then, I still fully believe it was a plan. Whether the Pokemon Company Incorporated decided to push it back or cut it for this year is unknown, but I can't jump to that conclusion until after July. Pokemon Day is not the end-all, be-all to Pokemon news for each year. We usually get more news. Now, in the last 3 years, we've only had a Pokemon Presents in February and one in August, and that's happened for the last 3 years in a row. I'm hoping this year it will be different. Moving on. What does this mean for Black and White remake games, though? Well, it means PLZA may have made them even more insignificant than BDSP were to PLA. Which, yeah, that could be the case, man. It could be the case. And maybe that's why. Maybe that's actually a good reason. Like, let's think about this from a logical perspective, right? If they announced PLZA, right, a literal Legends game of Kalos, they must have known how hyped that was going to be. They must have known how exciting that was going to be for people, because it was, okay? It was an undeniably hype and exciting moment when that was revealed. Everybody got excited, right? Now, imagine if they had also included in that black and white remakes. It would have been a weird thing to kind of take attention away from both things, right? Like, if you look at this trailer, we go over here, and this is, I think, the British version upload, or I'm not really sure. No, it's the official YouTube channel. So it's got about 1 million views almost, right? And this is just on the American, like, post of this, right? This is pretty good. It's pretty crazy, right? But imagine now if they had, like, you know, done this and a black and white remake, the focus would have been a little bit all over the place in this moment, right? In this exact moment when this got announced. And then people's expectations would have been that this game would be coming out, you know, the same way that Legends came out the first time with Arceus. So I think it's a good thing. I think it's a naturally good thing. They decided to, like, kind of wait a little bit with it and then kind of, you know, maybe announce it around May or June to have a release in 2024, because that way it kind of separates itself from Legends Arceus, or sorry, Legends Z-A. It separates itself so people know they're 2 different products and that there's no, like, correlation necessarily between the quality of the 2. So, and also the fact that the other one they can announce is being made by a different studio, which would be go smoother, right, that way. But anyway, moving on to the next thing, we're going to just turn off the trailer right there, is part 2 from Soul on this exact subject. So, part 2. So when will PLZA release in 2025? I think the implication of a 2025 game being announced on Pokemon Day 2024 is that it will release early 2025, and most likely before Pokemon Day of 2025. Now, why make PLZA the big announcement for the Pokemon Day of 2024 instead of doing that on Pokemon Day 2025? What are they going to show on Pokemon Day 2025 now? Exactly, question mark. What are they going to show? That's true. The only thing that I can think of is that maybe they didn't want to give the release date in case they need to delay it, in case there is complications. Maybe that's why they wanted to do it. Like, I don't know. Maybe that is why. Could be not the case. Could be that it still does come out later in the year. And what they announce on that specific Pokemon Day is just more gameplay of the game. The and then, like, the gameplay and, like, just more stuff about it, and then also a new game announcement for that year. But again, who knows? What he says is, what makes PLZA the big announcement for Pokemon Day 2024 instead of doing that on Pokemon Day 2025? What are they going to show on the Pokemon Day 2025 now? If this is just going to be PLZA news again, why not leave that surprise/hype for the year that it will be in the spotlight? Exactly. Also, the Pokemon Company Incorporated doesn't usually reveal a game years in advance. Historically, it's usually been the same year it's coming out, which is true. Now, the way I see it is Game Freak's Team B has been working on this game since maybe even before PLA released in 2022. And of course, if you guys look at the actual work cycle, this shows you how long it took to make the different games. So PLA is above here and Scarlet and Violet is below there. So Scarlet and Violet started their development. And this is an official source, by the way. This is an actual official source right here. This image is a legit image from themselves, right? This is from Game Freak themselves. And apparently, they started development of Legends back in 2018, before Scarlet and Violet. And I guess in that time period that they were learning stuff with Legends Arceus, they must have implemented some of that into Scarlet and Violet. So if it took them approximately 4 years until the release date, right? So 3 years of actual development and then 1 year of like polishing and stuff for Legends Arceus, because it came out, in 2022 in January. So if they started in 2018, they literally took 4 years to develop it. And same thing for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. They took about 4 years to develop it, give or take. Keep in mind, maybe 3 of those years are full-on development, and then about 1 year is polishing, like bug fixing and stuff like that, which they still have a lot of bugs and stuff left in those games. So again, my point is just that there's the approximate time frame. If they finished it in 2022, around the same time they released, they got these guys out and announced that everything was done with them. By the time they got out, approximately after this in 2022, they should have started with Legends, the next Legends game. Because what was coming out in 2018, guys? Well, in 2018, we had the release of Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. So they started development of Legends and Scarlet and Violet around the same time. But during this exact same period, they also had pretty much finished up and were preparing to push out Pokemon Sword and Shield. So you can assume that in 2022, at the end of tail end 2022, they already would have started or already would have been working on the next projects as well, because these projects were already like in their end phase. So they will have had a long time to develop them by that point. Now, going back up to the actual post, he says, the way we see it is that Game Freak's Team B has been working on this game since maybe even before PLA released in 2022. Exactly. So like around that period. It'll be around 3 years of dev time for PLA to when this game would release in early 2025. Now, for people saying they're glad they took more time to make this would mean they actually had less time to make this game. Exactly. That doesn't necessarily mean that they actually been working on it longer, because that game came out in 2022. By the time this game comes out, it's going to be less time, because that one started from 2018 till 2022. That's 4 years, give or take, right? This game, if it started in 2022 development, like at some point, it will have only had, by the time in 2025 when it comes out, it will only have had 3 years of development time, maybe even less. That's the thing. It's not necessarily got more time. People think just because it's coming out next year that means it's necessarily getting more time or it's delaying or anything. No, their schedule is probably still on par with what it's been. The only question is what is coming out this year, if there even is anything this year, right? And this, again, the copium coming in here. But, moving on, though, he says, for people saying they're glad to take more time, does actually mean that they had less time to make this game. I think it's especially true if there's no outsourced remake game in 2024. However, if there is a black and white game in 2024, I could see the possibility of PLZA being released a bit later in 2025. But again, we run into the Pokemon Day 2025 issue. I guess they could not show us anything more about PLZA until the next Pokemon Day, and then finally give us a trailer and say it's coming out of fall 2025, but I don't see that being the case. I just don't see the Pokemon Company Incorporated going from yearly game releases to going 2 years without a Game Freak game without making money too, which is true. Like, remember, you have to keep in mind a very important thing, guys. These games aren't just games. They're also merchandising machines. They're advertisements for the merch. They also push other games and other things forward. Like, let me put it like this, okay? If there are no new Pokemon generations or new games coming out with new forms and new things like that, eventually games like Pokemon Go would run dry, because guess what? There's no way in hell that Pokemon Company would give the right to Pokemon Go to create a bunch of their own Pokemon. Like, that's just not going to happen. They're always going to have Game Freak creating all the new Pokemon. That's something probably Game Freak also has in the deal, that they don't allow anyone else to create brand new Pokemon besides occasionally something, right? Meltan is like the occasional, kind of like weird one, but even that was under supervision by people like Masuda and people like, being involved with it from Game Freak still at the time. So my point is just that fact that for Pokemon to just go stale and still for that long of a time would be really weird for them. 2015 was the only time they did that. And that year, it was fine because you know what came out the year after that? They had Sun and Moon and Pokemon Go coming out that same year in 2016, like right after that like empty year, and that's a big one. That's a big boy. So the only thing that would make me feel like this year could be empty and nothing comes out this year is if we get PLZA next year and a new generation. And that's the only thing that would make me think, oh shit, this boys, it's happening. This is just like they did back then in 2015. It's the only thing that would make it sense to me. That's the only way I could see this being logical. But any other way, it doesn't make sense. But moving on, though. He says, however, if there is a black and white remake game in 2024, I could see the possibility of PLZA being released a bit later in 2025, but again, we run into the Pokemon Day 2025 issue. I guess they could not show us anything more about PLZA until the next Pokemon Day, and then finally give us a trailer and say it's coming out the fall of 2025. But I don't see that being the case. No, I think we're going to see... this is me talking from a realistic standpoint. The closest, most logical time frame we're going to see another trailer is August, right? That's me not huffing copium. That's me being realistic. The next possible time we're going to see something is August, which is exactly 6 months from now, and that would follow in the theme that they've been having for the last 3 years, which is 2 presents every single year. February, August, and that's it. By the way, he says the following, though. It's just, I don't see TBC going, from the yearly releases going to 2 years without a Game Freak game, without making money, too. So even if I'm wrong about all of this, I still think that it will release earlier than fall 2025. Maybe May or June 2025, or even September, since that's still close enough to make holiday sales. And more coming in Part 3. Now, we actually didn't make a Part 3, as far as I'm aware. Soul didn't go through and make one, but... whenever he does do one, I will cover it in a further, in a different video in the future. But yeah, for now, though, let's go over to something else. And this is him starting a new thread, and it's more about theories in regards to Pokemon Legends Z-A. So I thought we'd take a look at, see what it's got to say. So, part 1. If you haven't already watched this video, it goes over all the themes in PLZA, what it could be based on. Now, specifically, reconstruction of Paris. But when it comes to what era PLZA could be set in, past or future, I think the Game Freak purposely left it ambiguous so that it would remain open for us to speculate and argue on. Right now, I'm leaning heavily on that it's in the past, and I'll give my evidence for that in the part 2 of this post. But the ZA logo, plus the switching between the hand-drawn blueprints and the 3D simulation blueprint, definitely made me think. Could there be a gameplay mechanic that allows player to travel between the past and the future at will somehow? Intriguing. And this is him referring to this video by Loxton, which I've been already saying, since this was revealed, I think there's going to be some sort of time travel. I feel like there's going to be some ability to travel from past and future. Now, some people have the theory, and some people have been talking about, and I think one of the people who brought it up as well was, oh my lord, I forget the names of everybody right now, but it was one of our fellas who actually, one of our friends who came through and kind of came up with a bit of a theory that, hey, maybe it's set in old time frames, or maybe it's set in the future because of the fact that we had, Legends Arceus set in the past, Scarlet and Violet set in the present, and then, Legends Z-A set in the future. That was kind of the theory he had. But I want to see if I can find it for you guys. I can show you what we're referring to without being too confusing, because it gets a bit confusing when I'm just doing this stuff off the top of my head. Now, the one person I do know that has a post is probably Mix Ellie. I think he made a post about how it can be set in the future and the past, but I'm not exactly sure if I'm going to be able to find that tweet. But again, no, because he only had a short tweet, so no, I think it might have been Kuro Blitz. So I'm going to go find Kuro real quick, because he made a whole post about this. He made a whole post about, it could be set in the future, it could be set in the past, it could be set in both. We'll have to wait and see. But let's see. We're going to just scroll down until we find his post about it, because he has a lot of theories about, existence of Pokemon Wars and stuff like that, and we're going to read all his posts in the future. And also, I see my old thumbnail right there, which is pretty cool. Nonetheless, let me just go see if I can find his exact post. If I don't find it, we'll just move on to the next thing, and we'll go from there. But yeah, can't really seem to find it. But again, the post itself, as I explained, literally points out how Legends Z-A was set in the literal, Legends Z-A could be set in the future because of the fact that Scarlet and Violet's set in the present, and the other one, which is Legends Arceus, is set in the past. But again, I digress. We'll leave it at that. Now, he has another post here, and this is coming for us from Soul Silver, where he's referring to a post here. He's quoting a post from Kyla Capsule, who says, Sycamore's dialogue in Pokemon Masters hints at a connection between Kalos and Unova. And then here is the story event, Hearts United. 2 regions, 2 legends. You're right. How very intriguing. It is said that Reshiram and Zekrom were involved in Unova's creation, where Xerneas and Vettel are said to have had a hand in Kalos' destruction. Good observation. You're a clever one, aren't you? I think it would be interesting to investigate how the myths of Unova made it over to Kalos in the first place. Which, yes, that is very interesting connection right there. And again, this is something I actually noticed because I'm playing through X and Y right now on stream. But yes, if you guys go to the Perfume Palace, there is these statues of Reshiram and, you know, Zekrom just kind of chilling in the back here in like the background. But that's not all. There's also these pictures, and one of them says the glorious past, and the other one says the brilliant future. And I even replied to him there on this tweet. I literally said, I saw these yesterday while playing the game and yelled, oh, look, look, as a meme. But really odd Unova connections. It is pretty, like he said, it is pretty wild. And here's what he says. Another reason for Masters, Pokemon Masters is a treasure. Definitely read this. I'm not sure if Masters is totally canon, but in X and Y, especially in places like the Perfume Palace, there's hints to Unova's history being connected to Kalos' history. A palace is a place where royalty rules and lives, yet this place is almost 100% Unovan inspired. So, why would Unovan royalty have a palace in a different nation? Then we see these lines of glorious past in Unova and a brilliant future now in Kalos. It almost seems like Kalos could have been born out of a Unovan monarchy, or maybe vice versa, which, yes, is highly possible. At the end of the day, Unova's like lore is a little bit convoluted, because talking about castles and stuff like that for Unova region, which is based on the United States, which makes no fucking sense, okay, I'm gonna be honest, the United States doesn't have, like, you know, castles from the past because they never existed. The country never existed. Like back when castles were still being built, when monarchy still existed, they weren't really, you know, like they kind of became a country because they didn't want to be part of a monarchy to begin with, right? Kind of like split away from the British for a reason and fought a long war with them for that exact reason. So they don't really have a lot of connections to that kind of stuff. So it makes no sense. Instead, it must be the other way around. A monarchy within Kalos, which then went to Unova. Like that makes more sense. So that would explain the non-stop connection. And keep in mind, France and the United States, they have a long history together. What do you call it? The Statue of Liberty, gifted to the Americans by the French. That's one thing. Number two, you also have the fact that the French helped them against their battle against the British. Another one, right? There's a lot of connections between the two. So it's not that out of the, you know, realm of possibility. But at the end of the day, I would highly doubt that it's the other way around. I highly doubt that it's a monarchy from Unova, because that doesn't really make sense. It would be the other way around. And that's pretty much what I'm trying to say here. But again, interesting connections, and literally as I was playing the game the other day, as I'm sitting and playing it on stream now, this is the stuff that makes me so intrigued, man, because these weird little connections, the brilliant future, right, and the glorious past, what an interesting way to look at things. And again, this is another one of those things that makes me like have massive hopium for, like, you know, a Unova remake, hoping like, oh guys, what's gonna happen? It's gonna happen, boys. But again, it's all theories at the end of the day. It's all theories. And that's pretty much where I'm going to leave that one at. So moving on to the next one, guys. It is a post on 4chan. So this one has just a little bit of text. And again, it's nothing too massive. But literally all it says is, I will have, the Pokémon Legends Z-A apparently is a rumor. But this one is ridiculous. It says, it will have a dating mechanic. They're suggesting there's going to be a dating mechanic in Pokémon Legends Z-A. After testing the waters with Masters and Scarlet and Violet, they will finally fully commit to it, since they're going back to the older teen protagonists, Callum and Serena. Legends being the designated bin for experimental IDs will also let them quickly drop it if they get backlash. So basically, he's trying to say they're going to try a dating simulator-esque feature, which I guess you kind of have a little bit of that in Masters to some extent, but this would be the wildest thing to me, man. I highly doubt it's real, but I thought it would be fun to cover it nonetheless and include it in this video, guys. So, moving on, we have the next thing which I want to talk about, which is there's a massive Nintendo Switch 2 rumor leak about 2 huge RPG games coming to the new console, which I think is interesting to talk about because of also the connection that it could have to Legends Z-A. Now, the new Nintendo Switch is going to have plenty of RPG fans to play next year. So, a new Nintendo Switch rumor alleges that 2 big RPGs, one that's already out and another one that is set to release later this year, are both coming to the next Nintendo Switch console, presumably at or near the launch of the console itself, which is rumored to happen sometime next year. We are 3 months into 2024, and there's no word from Nintendo about the rumored Nintendo Switch 2. The tentative name assigned to the next Nintendo console expected to be the successor to the Switch. As a result, there is also no word what games Nintendo fans can expect, at least not officially. There are plenty of rumors about Nintendo Switch 2 games. The latest claims 2 RPGs of importance are Switch 2 bound. The first of these two RPGs is Metaphor ReFantazio, an RPG announced from the Persona studio Atlas back in 2016, though it wasn't fully revealed until June of last year. It is currently scheduled to release this fall via PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox Series X, S, and so on and so forth. Now, there's been no word of a Nintendo Switch version, and it may be because it will actually be a Switch 2 game. And apparently, from the creative minds behind Persona 3, Persona 4, and Persona 5 comes Metaphor ReFantazio. And this is supposed to be the new game. Now, apparently, this game is going to be coming to the Switch 2. At least that's what they're trying to say here with this rumor. The second supposed Nintendo Switch 2, bound RPG is one that released last month, but also via Atlas. The RPG is Persona 3 Reloaded. This is a big one. This one is already out on all the consoles, and it's doing really well. I think it's sold in the first day or two, about 1 million copies. It did really, really well. This game is also oddly missing on Nintendo Switch, which is perhaps because it's being saved for the Switch 2, which would be pretty cool if it is true. I would love for that to be the case. But I want to point something out here. Is it possible that maybe the reason they don't give us an actual release date for Pokémon Legends Z-A is because it might be the possibility that it's going to be one of the games as well that's going to be released for the Switch 2? Is it possible the reason we don't know the release date and maybe they're keeping it a little bit secret is because they need to have a confirmation from none else than, of course, Nintendo about the console release, and that's when they will determine it. And the reason I say this is because of something very important, which is Nintendo of America and them pinning this tweet, right? They pinned the tweet announcing Pokémon Legends Z-A. This is so weird because they don't usually do this, right? Now, if we go to the Wayback Machine, right? Let's go to the Wayback Machine and check what was the last thing they pinned. What was the last actual thing that they pinned here? We're going to go to the Wayback Machine. The Wayback Machine is just a website you can use to check previous time frames of a website. And here we go. So let's see. So we're seeing here a post from, this is on 27th, right? So if we go 27th of 2024, we go to the day before here, right? Let's go to the day before and look at a snapshot of the website just to see what it looked like at that time, right? Let's see. Hopefully the website's going to load. Here we go. Website loading. And hopefully it's going to show us we're not logged in on this this way, so maybe it will not show us the exact thing that was there. But hopefully if it loads, we'll be able to see what was actually pinned. And the reason I want to see what was pinned is to kind of determine the importance of the actual pinning here, right? How important is this pinned tweet as opposed to a non-pinned tweet? So here, the literal thing they had pinned then was the partner showcase. That's literally the announcement of brand new games that was pinned, okay? Now, that's one of them. Let's now go to another time frame here. Let's go back to I want to say, let's say December of last year, right? December or something like that of last year. So this is the 1st of December of 2023. So let's see what they would have put there at that point. Because keep in mind, this pinned tweet, very odd, very specific. And also, in this exact tweet is where they say that this game is set entirely. Listen, the literal word entirely means completely, 100%. Within Lumio City. Again, confirming this game is going to be set in Lumio City. However, now that we're loading and waiting for this website to show up, because again, the Wayback Machine is a little bit slow. Again, I want to point out, super weird, super odd. It's not really, it's not really the norm for them to do this. We're going to go again here to check out. Let's go to, I think they have a good snapshot here from January as well. But let's maybe go back to 2023 and let's go to December 7th, okay? December 7th seems like a decent day. There's enough, green would indicate that it's a good day to check. And the only reason I'm showing you this, the only reason I'm bringing this up is, again, to prove a little bit of a point that, they're not going to pin just anything unless it's important in some sense, right? Unless it's important to them in some way, I don't think they're going to be pinning it, which is why I think we may see Legends Z-A. And this is specifically my theory, okay? And you heard it here first, okay? You heard it here first. My theory is, the reason they pinned it, and the reason that they're spending so much more time on it here than they normally would on a Pokemon game, because you look here. So in November, the thing that was pinned was a Mario game, Super Mario RPG, which makes total sense. It's freaking Mario. Of course they're going to pin Mario. It makes total sense. Now, the reason I think that this guy here is going to get attention is because I think during the next Nintendo Direct, which is rumored, okay, no guarantees, rumored to be this month, I think we'll see the actual first gameplay of Legends Z-A. That is my theory. Again, maybe I am coping, maybe I've got the hopium here, but I have a suspicion we're going to see our first gameplay of this game during a Nintendo Direct. and that direct is rumored to be this month. There's no guarantees, keep in mind, no guarantees it actually is this month, but that's at least the rumored time frame. So that's pretty much where I'm going to put that one. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be the end of today's video, guys. If you want to get a double upload today, guys, a second video, please hit the like button down below. Let's try to get to 500 likes, and you guys will get yourself a double upload. And that's it for today. Thank you guys for watching. Bye. Have a great day. Bye. I'll see you next time. Bye.